Great. And now our next speaker is Frank from SmartBear, and he will be... Hello, Frank.
Hello, Yannicka.
Good to have you. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
So yeah, Frank will be giving us some key insights on the state of the API space. I'll let you start with some brief introductions and then just tell the audience what you're going to be talking about, and then I'll join you back in about 20 minutes for some audience questions.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Yannicka. So hi, everyone. Good morning. I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. I know it's just getting started, but API Days really is such a great event. It's a pity we all can't be in person in Paris enjoying it. But above all, I hope you and yours are keeping safe and well in the current climate. So thanks for coming along to my talk, 5 Learnings Shaping Our View on the Future of APIs. My name, as Yannicka mentioned, is Frank Kilcommons, and I'm the API Technical Evangelist at SmartBear. And as the talk title alludes to, I plan on sharing some insights and learnings that we're observing through our various industry surveys, ones that we're, of course, sharing with the wider community, but maybe more interestingly or importantly, how we're taking those data points to form our own opinions on what's important for the next generation of API toolings. So the structure of today's talk is very straightforward. I will briefly cover the methodology and demographics of our State of Software Quality API report. Then we'll jump straight into discussing some of the learnings, and I'll take you through those. And then I will kind of give you the perspective as to how we're leveraging those to determine what's important for individuals, teams, and organizations in the production and consumption of APIs, not just for ourselves at SmartBear, but also for the wider API community. And a bit of a spoiler alert, I do plan on giving you a sneak peek as to some of the new core open source offerings that we're about to launch that we really think will be game-changing for the tooling space. So we roll out a number of industry reports each year at SmartBear, and my biased favorite, of course, is the API report. The goal remains the same every year. We're trying to gauge the temperature, the trends, the methodologies, and the tools that are used across the API space, really for managing APIs right throughout their life cycle. So we conducted our survey in August of this year, and it contained 49 questions, and we captured just shy of 1,700 responses. So just so you are aware, the primary audience for the survey was users of our open source tools like Swagger and SoapUI, as well as our commercial offerings like Swagger Hub, Ready API, and Collaborator. So the results themselves, they're not scientific, they are based on those completed responses. And looking briefly at the demographics, it was really encouraging to see such diversity in the roles that were represented. So it's a very clear indicator to me as to the importance APIs now hold for all teams involved in software, agnostic of the industry that they find themselves in. Developers, architects, and QA engineers formed the bulk of the respondents, but we had a nice distribution outside of those roles, making up the remaining 34.5%. And not alone did the respondents represent a diverse role group, but the organizations which they represent spanned 17 industry verticals, and we had a very nice distribution across company sizes, from very small startups from 1 to 25 employees, all the way up to very large organizations with over 10,000 employees. So let's jump into the learnings, and don't worry, I will share a link to the ungated report towards the end of the talk. So we're not going to go through all of the details. You can browse that at your own leisure and look at all of the graphs, all of the key learnings, and form your own opinion on what the data is telling you. So the first observation we have is that API adoption and development is really increasing. And APIs, of course, have a footing in the majority of organizations right now across all industries. And this is coming back to us with 22% of respondents citing that they've been involved in delivering or providing APIs for more than a decade. So that's our highest ever recorded percentage. Looking at some of the industry segments specifically, we're seeing that automotive, energy, and government are the most mature in terms of years spent delivering APIs. And 2021 has been a landmark year in many respects for organizations. They've been adopting digital transformation initiatives faster than ever before, often out of necessity due to the rapidly changing pandemic environment. but all indicators that we have point that the API industry is accelerating. And this has also been backed up by the likes of Gartner, who are predicting a 37% increase in API investments alone in 2022. The main drivers for why organizations are leveraging APIs continues to be looking for efficiency gains. So they're really trying to reduce development time or cost. They're looking to also improve the environment for their engineers and for their software developers. So they're looking for better interoperability across the tooling chains, as well as fueling their transformation initiatives that I alluded to a little bit earlier. So there's more production of APIs, there's more consumption of APIs, and we have this kind of network effect happening, which is really bringing into focus the need for quality, resilience, and adaptability to meet consumer needs. Like, even if we look at some of the prosa about this year's API Days Paris conference, we saw the text saying there's more digital ecosystems, there's new business models, new platforms, new market spaces, new as-a-service value proposition offerings, and they're all pointing to one common denominator, and that's more APIs. Now, that's great news for all of us involved in the API industry, of course, but with it comes additional challenges. And we see that we're dealing with a more complex API landscape, which is our second kind of key learning. So there's a wide variety of API styles available and more technologies available than ever for teams. So we're seeing this natural emergence of multi-protocol integration landscapes. And these multiple flavors of API styles are actually becoming more normal, and in many cases they complement each other. And this has been strongly kind of coming back in our findings to us this year, with 81% of respondents citing that their organizations are using one or more protocol or one or more API style, and actually 57% are citing that they're using 3 or more. Now, REST still dominates, so 91% say that they're using REST to deliver their APIs. Perhaps a little bit surprisingly, we're still seeing that SOAP is holding strongly at number 2, slightly actually increasing from our one of our previous surveys in 2019. Nevertheless, newer technologies and techniques like GraphQL and gRPC have also doubled in the same time frame. So companies are really realizing that to give more optimal consumer experiences, they're mixing a flavor of API styles. So they're realizing there's no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to selecting a style. You really need to explore the surface area of the problem that you're trying to solve, match that against the different characteristics of the different API styles, leading you to selecting the best tool for the problem that you're trying to alleviate. So we need to kind of become more comfortable with the fact that new styles, new protocols are probably more likely to appear faster than existing ones will disappear. So with that, there's this increasing need for tools and specifications to be able to support teams. And we're seeing the emergence of more specifications to deal with these challenges. I suppose comparing our survey to the one from last year, we see that async API, as an example, has doubled in popularity. Nevertheless, OpenAPI is still the overwhelming choice for teams looking to document and annotate the surface area of their API. But that's not a surprise given the prevalence of the REST style. And to deal with this proliferation of APIs that's happening, we're seeing that standardization continues to be the top challenge that practitioners are looking to see solved as they're trying to scale their API programs. And this is our learning number 3. And of course, without standardization, API delivery approaches can become very bespoke, or API programs can actually stagnate. That can cause you to have higher costs, a longer time to market, and it can actually just make dealing with change more convoluted and more complex. And that leads to, a lower value proposition, and unfortunately, it leads to a decreased reach of your API product, which is not what you want. Now, standardization and governance is a big topic. I could easily fill the whole talk just on that subject alone. But what I would say is that it's not about being authoritarian. Really, it's about creating these safe guide rails that help teams to innovate and not spend time dealing with the challenges that may have potentially already been solved in the organization. It's not just about naming conventions and API style guides. It's bigger than that. It's, trying to standardize the data models within an organization when it makes sense to do so, trying to standardize on your business capabilities, your business models, and your business flows, tackling the hard things like how do you deal with identity, how do you deal with security at the organizational level, and then sharply focusing on what is the process that you use to deliver your API products and manage them right throughout their life cycle. And this is all important because consumer expectations have never been higher. And we're actually seeing that consumers of APIs are demanding standardized offerings in many industries, especially financial services, and they're willing to look elsewhere if those needs are not being met. And what I would also say before we leave this slide is it's really encouraging to see security creeping up to number 2 on the list. As you would have heard in the previous talk, being able to secure your APIs before and during and after releasing to production is really imperative given the increasing API threats that are out there. And our learning number 4 is that API quality and increased testing are really becoming more and more important for the vast majority of organizations. So it's all about quality over quantity, which is a good thing. And the general sentiment that we see out there is that 75% of respondents state that API quality as a business priority is either very or extremely important to their organization. And again, this is crucial when you look at what's important from a consumer perspective, because we also learned from API consumers that ease of use, accurate and detailed documentation, responsiveness, performance, and availability of your API is absolutely crucial. So if you're in the business of providing API products and you care about quality, you need to have those consumer concerns front and center as part of your quality priorities. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that even though teams and organizations want to deliver quality APIs, there's a bit of a friction between delivering at speed with the people and the resources that are available and delivering quality at speed. And 57% of developers are stating that they're involved in testing, be it functional security or performance testing. So unfortunately, organizations are trying to do more with less, and the urge and the desire to speed up release cycles is a little bit at odds with the availability of the team resources. So what we're seeing is that 49% of respondents state that demand pressures and 47% state that time pressures are real impediments for being able to guarantee API quality. So the tools and the processes that we make available for teams really need to focus on being able to automate the mundane and repetitive tasks, and letting those kind of testing specialists that exist within the teams focus on organic testing, and what I would say is really focus on ease of use of the API product, given that that's so important from a consumer perspective. And again, it's unfortunate because there is a good awareness out there across all of the respondents that poor quality can have detrimental impact. So it can lead to missing deadlines, can force you not to be able to meet your SLAs, and actually can cause you to lose customers or experience some brand damage on social media. And then looking at what's really important for the teams, well, we're seeing that it's all about simplicity. So learning number 5 is that ease of use of API tools, better interoperability with the existing tool suites that are being used, and being able to reuse functionality right across the life cycle of the API is what's resonating with API practitioners. I think we're all hearing a little bit more about the concept of cognitive load that's being experienced by engineering and software teams, and how that's damaging the morale and impacting the productivity. So I really believe that more value should be placed on delivering immersive experiences for the teams. And I think the tools that really can empower developers to work with all of these multiple flavors of APIs that we see that are coming in this more complex landscape, and delivering that in a way that doesn't force the teams to deal with unwanted context switching is likely to be met with approval from vast majority of organizations. So those were some of the key learnings. And actually, let me just paste the link to the full report in the chat before I forget to do that a little bit later. So as we're, digesting these data points, a clear story really begins to emerge for us as to what the challenges are that exist in the landscape and what's important for teams as they're continuing to work with APIs. So we see that there's a more complex environment with multiple protocols, multiple styles. Developers are taking on more responsibilities. there's really a desire to have easy to use tools, and that's seen as a way to improve efficiency gains. So this is really kind of focusing how we look at our own tooling and looking at the tooling angle specifically. So we're really kind of peeling back the covers, trying to determine what's important for us and what's important for the API industry as a whole. And as part of that, we're looking at our own core at SmartBear, and we really believe that specifications are such an important mechanism for managing complexity and improving interoperability across tooling suites. Why is this? Well, we see them as really promoting standardization, or at the very least, they afford the ability to validate standards in an automated way. Specifications, of course, act as a contract or act as a promise as to how your API should behave after implementation. So it gives you and affords you the ability to be able to assert quality checks, and assert is the API doing what it says on the tin right throughout the life cycle. And the data is really telling us that there is this desire to have a wider support for API styles within existing tools. So being able to deal with multiple specifications in a consistent experience is an important part in reducing the friction that's currently being experienced by API teams. Now, of course, sometimes you have to walk before you can run. And again, looking at our history at being at the formation of the Open API specification, our current open source offerings are the most mature in the field, but they are becoming heavier over time and being weighed down a little bit by technical debt. So we wanted to be able to address our own problem space first and foremost. And by that, I mean, we want to be able to support multiple versions of Open API and get Open API 3.1 support fully out the door. Of course, we then want to be able to expand to be able to handle editing, managing, and collaboration across different forms of specifications, supporting the different API styles, and do so in a way that's easy for us to stay up to date across all of these varying specifications. And that will drive our own open source offerings as well as our commercial experiences, and fundamentally meeting our own teams where they are first and foremost. But we're very conscious of addressing this challenge in the right way, and that being in a way that can support the wider industry challenges. And what do I mean by this? Well, I see there being a challenge out there with regards to adoption of newer specification versions across the tooling chains. So if we take Open API 3.1 as an example, its support across tooling platforms is patchy at best. And that's something we're very mindful of, being a founding member of the Open API specification. And it's a heavy lift for tooling vendors, don't get me wrong. Like, dealing with textual specifications is non-trivial. You have complex source mappings, you have docs and generated code thrown into the mix. You're dealing with remote referencing and a network of files or fragments of files, and then trying to bundle and unbundle all of these specifications. And it's not just our own analysis that's pointing to this challenge being out there. Like, if we look at some analysis also coming from our friends over at Postman, we see that Swagger 2.0 is still more common and more popular and used more widely than Open API 3. And Open API 3 is out there for a good number of years. Open API 3.1 is not even appearing on this graphic, which kind of backs up the story. So we really saw a path forward to lowering the barrier of participation for developers and for other tooling vendors. And to help drive that mission, we're introducing a new open source offering, which we're calling the Swagger API DOM. At least that's what we're calling it for now. And we really see this as having the potential to shape the future of API design, development, and management tooling with regards to dealing with all of these specifications. And the goal of Swagger API DOM is to simplify the complexity, making adoption of all of these specifications easier for everyone. So what is it? Well, it's a semantically rich cross-format specification representation. So by cross-format, I mean it can support JSON, YAML, XML, and so on. And by cross-specification, it can support JSON schema, OpenAPI, Async API, protobuf, and so forth. So it's a semantically rich data structure which can consistently represent all of these different API languages or specifications, and it's parsable and serializable back into that original language and format. And more importantly, it's accessible in a consistent way and usable across multiple programming languages. So we really see this as negating the need for every developer and every tooling vendor having to approach the same problem when it comes to dealing with the variance in specification and versions of specifications that's out there in the API landscape right now. So looking at it a little bit more under the covers, well, at its core, there's a DOM, or a document object model. So this is where the source code is structured as a tree of nodes or elements, and there's a link back to the source and the node semantics, so back to an operation or a statement. And it will have a consistent API for querying and traversal of that structure. It comes with a source map, of course, and that's really just a node position in the node document, so it's keeping track of that. And then it has namespaces. So this is extensions on top of the core AST model to represent a specific API specification, for example, OpenAPI. And then more importantly, it's extensible from the start. So it has a pluggable architecture, meaning you can build adapters to really allow API DOM to easily extend and parse additional formats and specs into the future. So be that a parser or a serializer or whatever type of custom logic you need. And I suppose to really drive and nail home the concept of meeting teams where they are and delivering immersive editing experiences, we're also delivering a language service on top of API DOM. And because it's on top of API DOM, it comes with multi-spec support, multi-format support, all as a single library or service, offering language-related features consistently across a variety of editing experiences. So be they browser-based or be they standalone IDEs. And that will really power the future of our own Swagger editor, UI, Swagger Hub tools, as well as the extensions that we have for popular IDEs like VS Code and IntelliJ and more to come. And when I talk about, language-related features, I talk about all of that rich experience that you would expect in an IDE. So validation, syntax highlighting, auto-completion, linting and custom rules for linting, and being able to do actions like go to reference and so forth. And LSP stands for Language Server Protocol, and that was delivered by Microsoft as part of releasing VS Code, and now that's an open standard. And the goal of that protocol is to allow programming language support to be implemented and distributed independently of the actual editor or IDE itself. So maybe to kind of explain what it would be a little bit, let's assume we have several specification format combinations. So OpenAPI JSON, OpenAPI YAML, async API JSON. And in order to provide those language capabilities to multiple clients, you would have to implement logic per code per language format. Now, LSP kind of helps solve this problem. So it provides a consistent protocol, number one, and that means that each format combination can provide a single service provider. And that makes it then easier to be understood and communicated with a set of editors. So that's good, but you still need to have code for every language spec combination. So what we're trying to solve with the API DOM language service is that we want to be able to represent different language format combinations with one structure, and that is the API DOM structure. And then we combine that and power that with the likes of LSP, and it allows us to have a single component really providing language capabilities across several clients. So a single code base that's reusable across multiple clients without having to necessarily worry about the format or the semantic complexities of the underlying specifications themselves. Now, it's kind of difficult for me to demonstrate API DOM, but our open source team did put together a simple playground to really showcase the semantic parsing capabilities, the remote resolution capabilities, and the dereferencing capabilities of the core API DOM structure. So I will just paste in a source document here. So this is OpenAPI 3.1 in JSON format, and I'm just going to quickly demonstrate some of the semantic parsing capabilities. So the first thing that we will do is just tell API DOM, okay, what is the format and what is the library? So it's OpenAPI JSON 3.1. And then we will parse this to the API DOM representation. So this is the API DOM representation of the source document. So it fully understands the semantics of the source document itself. It's a more verbose structure, of course, because it contains all the information of the source document with rich semantics and source mappings. It might be actually easier to visualize this using something like S expression. You could think of it as like custom HTML with custom elements if you want. So again, the important thing is that API DOM understands the source semantics. So it knows that it's an Open API 3.1 document. So it creates an Open API 3.1 element. If you look at the information object that has a title field, summary field, description field, version field, again, it understands that. So it creates an info element, and then it has 4 child member elements. So it fully understands the structure.
Sorry to interrupt Frank here, but we're coming to the end of our session. So if you want to finish with some key takeaways, and then we'll let people and audience follow up with you on the chat afterwards.
Yeah, no, I am just finished. That was it. So basically, I encourage everyone to stay tuned. So the GitHub repo will be made public today, and we'll be sharing some really exciting reference implementation details and showcasing all of the editor capabilities over the next couple of weeks. So there's some really cool stuff happening with independent validation and a reimagination of code gen. So I encourage everyone to stay tuned. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation, Frank. And just a quick note to everybody in the audience, so feel free to take part in the conversation, so put your questions in the chat, and then Frank can follow up with those after the session. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.